Hello and welcome, everybody. Wally, can you provide some audio checks on the streams if possible and let me know? Audio check, audio checks. Wally, can you confirm that Facebook is streaming okay? Okay, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Good to connect with everyone on this wonderful Tuesday. We will be conducting a ripple effect. Today is Tuesday, October 26th or 25th, excuse me, and we will be going over basics around updates for this last week, as well as just general questions, and then focusing in on kind of the parts and pieces that call to actions that you can actually start focusing on yourself this last week with some of the advancements. So we'll actually show you parts and pieces of those as well. We're grateful for those that are joining from a support standpoint. I know there hasn't been a lot of notice that's gone out on this meeting, but grateful for those that are supporting. If you have questions that are support related, feel free to direct them to those individuals. You can do it by mousing over like this and then basically just sending a private message or through the general support message queue here. The best way to do it is on your ClearCare app or going to clear.support. So this is not a support-based session. However, there are resources here that can make sure that information can be pulled off into other ecosystems. This particular meeting is being streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as some other new channels that are going on. They're both corporate and personal on these different channels. So there'll be recordings made available, but over time they'll end up going to one stream within the digital world. So we're grateful for those that are here helping on the support side of things. And like we always talk about, we're grateful for you taking the time to seek to understand, then be understood, as Mr. Covey would always say. This is a private membership association, and the things that we talk about may be forward-looking. So just please be aware of that, as it's maybe a real simple concept of connecting a phone with storage and community, but there's a lot of moving parts to it, and it may be some things that like people just don't understand. But we're grateful for you taking the time to understand. Strategy is simple. Instead of using existing devices, Apple and Google basically have an opportunity to use devices that are decentralized, where you own your own identity and your own data. So thank you for taking the time to be here. For those that want to ask questions, you can join at rippleeffect.clear.events, or you can just interact online, kind of not in real time, but through general questions. So again, thank you for your time. I'm going to jump into some of the events that are going on right now. For those of you that are not aware, there is an event called Money 2020, and it happens once a year. It's primarily in the fintech or financial technology world where folks come together. It's a global event, primarily for North America or the Northern Hemisphere, even though there's companies from all around the world here today, from Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, UK. Those are all companies that I just talked with today. But it's really an important event as far as how the financial industry meets technology for the future. And so want to just basically talk a little bit about this event, some of the things that we're doing there. I'm going to go ahead and get confirmation, as I haven't gotten that yet, but I just want to check one quick thing. Okay. So yeah, we're good. So basically, just wanted to make sure that folks understand some of the activities and events. Like I said before, these are different events that are in Europe, US, and Asia, but also the folks from Asia and Europe actually come and attend this event. There's, whether you want to look at it from banking institutions, governmental institutions, most of the folks I talked with today are actually in the reputation world, from an organization called FICO all the way over to other scoring systems whenever you do what's called know your customer or online interactions where you take maybe a photo of an ID and then link that with the back and then link that with your face. There's so much more that's going on behind the scenes. And what we're doing is having interactions and conversations around how the decentralized world can actually connect in with these centralized systems that the world has come to trust and love. And we're trying to see, not trying, eventually it'll work, but we want to see if there's an element of being open. So, for instance, some of the conversation was with the FICO folks. Hey, instead of having third parties actually have the data, such as TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, and then running an algorithm in your world, so FICO's world, against it to basically pop out a score between 300 to 850, and that changes over time. So there were basically two individuals that came together to create this credit scoring system, and it originally started with the Sears folks. So for those that aren't aware of what Sears is, because I know we have a lot of international folks on the call, it's a retail store that sold anything from sneakers to a sofa, and a big portion of their business was actually credit. Like most folks don't know this, but in Utah, now this is actually owned um, by some very key players, and some of these key players don't like crypto, but basically, RC Willey in Utah is actually the second largest lender, but what they sell is things like televisions or sofas or fridges. But literally, their core business and where their main revenue is out of financing. And so when you look at these businesses that really sell products, when they tie into the financial world, credit is a really big deal. And so what you see is what most folks might not understand is FICO, is two individuals' names, Fair Isaacs Corporation, FICO, put together basically to underwrite this retail Sears store chain, so to speak, to be able to offer credit. And nowadays, everyone, whether you're buying a home or just getting a normal financing in the United States, now in other countries, this same type of thing applies, but you have your own bureaus. So Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, for those Americans, you don't understand, there's a similar body in other regions that does similar things. Some may be mature, some may not be mature. But I believe that in the United States of America, one of the core American dreams is actually the ability to get credit. And in these types of events is where a lot of that credit, as well as banking, as well as what they would call APIs or transactions where you're connecting up multiple different ecosystems into one, is really manifested. So it's important to at least understand where the future is currently going. Prior to this week, in the same venue, there was the web, basically the web 3. Some people call it web 4, web 5, but basically the ability to do what we can already do with the digital world, where you can take a decentralized device and log into an ecosystem. In this case, the digital world, which is interacting with blockchain in real time. So um, it's important to be able to not just try and build a parallel system to these centralized systems that are currently there, but also to try and see if they're willing to adapt to the decentralized nature. And what's gorgeous is, like, just the conversations today, there's literally probably, well, there was some folks out of Singapore that was like, that's not going to work. The government is in the banking world and we're just basic stewards over the banking world. So it's never going to work. But everyone else, I would say at least 15 other conversations, was absolutely either open or excited to the idea that there was such an ability to actually have choice. So there's hopefully some things to report out of this as far as, like I said, if you're in Europe, US, Asia, if you want to understand this firsthand, June 8th, the 6th through the 8th next year in Amsterdam, and then the one we're talking about today in Las Vegas, and then one April 2024 in Bangkok. So you can see that there are interactions going on that are independent than I'd say centralized systems or ecosystems. For those of you that know, I talk a lot about secret combinations, and it's just a different animal. So, anyhow, so this is the event that we're at currently. The digital world is being received very well, and just having interactions with existing centralized providers. Providers being banks. Actually, I think there's a really good. Let's see. There's a chart. There's one image right here. This is what I wanted. So if you kind of break it out, they break out in these kind of areas. So personal finance, retail finance, identity verification, venture capital, payments and remittance, digital banks, card networks, so Visa, MasterCard, American Express. And then they also tie through lending and credit ecosystems like these. And then acquirers and processors, which in my opinion, this is where a lot of the pressure is coming from the financial system. At least this is some of the stuff that within the ClearUnited ecosystem we're personally seeing and experiencing. And then big tech. So it's kind of like where big tech meets the financial industry. And if you notice inside of this big tech ecosystem, this is the normal names that you're used to. There's a couple additional ones. What's good is trying to mesh in the blockchain and Bitcoin, as they call it. I call this whole thing decentralized. As long as if there's no reason, in my opinion, to use, well, that's not true. Blockchain in and of itself, even if it's centralized, does have many business cases and use cases. But I believe that the ultimate for humanity is to truly have decentralized transactions where an individual can still continue to operate in the world but not be exposed to it. And I'll give you an example. This last week we were at an event, and the only way to be able to get an ice cream cone was to actually get an application. You couldn't actually go up and say, "I'd like an ice cream cone, and I'll give you my $2 in cash or in a credit card transaction." Or some parts of the world they use this Cash App or Venmo or these other types of, I'd say, centralized real-time prepaid type systems, but you couldn't do that. And for the first time ever in my personal life and experience, this last week we actually had to download an application. Now, did I do it? No. Did I have someone else do it? Yes. But I wanted to see what it was like. And so you download this application, then you're able to say, "Hey, I'm at this location." It's kind of like what you do with, like, for instance, I'm at this event, but where I'm actually streaming this video from is a different location. So I had to jump on, an Uber or a Lyft. So you basically say, "I'm here. I need to get picked up here, dropped off here," and there's the benefit. Well, think about it with an ice cream cone. So I'm at this venue, I'm at this window, so to speak. There's someone behind it that's just sitting there waiting to give out an ice cream cone. But you got to download an application that's linked to your name, linked to who you are, where you've been, what you're doing. It's linked to contacts, it's linked to GPS, it's linked to your real time location, to your historical location. Again, I didn't do this myself, but the point being is then you link it to a credit card transaction, and then you can get your ice cream cone. Now, that may be good on the adoption phase, but what happens when this system that's in this la la land of fictitious, which is actually real now, becomes mainstream? And then if you don't do things a certain way, you can't get the ice cream cone. So I'll just put that on shelf. But a lot of the systems within this ecosystem, primarily around blockchain, I believe will actually tie to that. Now, what blockchain does is it's basically a ledger. In some cases, it's double ledger accounting. In some cases, it's triple ledger accounting. In the case with the digital world ecosystem, it's actually triple ledger and one other as well. I won't talk a lot about that, but basically doing my best to try and understand the connection, as well as many other folks that are here, trying to connect up the blockchain or decentralized ecosystem into not just big tech, but other type of lending ecosystems, banks, payment gateways, and trying to link, because you don't even need all these circles, but you need a player inside of each one of these circles, ideally, to be able to plug into the digital world to offer digital banking, to offer digital credit, to offer digital mortgages, to offer digital ID. And digital ID in the physical world, that's actually, by the way, there's so many companies. So inside of this physical world here, it's identity world, and that's not even most. Um, where are the ones I want to? They're not even in that one. Where are they? Some of the ones I want to talk about are not even listed on here. But basically, there's been a consolidation in the identity world. Out of Europe, three or four competitors were acquired by the same company, and we talked with them 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's around know your customer and requirements. But they basically have done some very intelligent things, and artificial intelligence and machine learning within the identity world is very one, it's important, but two, talk about overreach, especially when you have, public addresses for different chains that can be linked to an identity, which we won't talk about right now. But I guess the point that I'm trying to drive at is this whole industry is really important to have future guidance around how systems are architected, integrated, and eventually rolled out. The real question is, what is the adoption going to be? Are there people out there that want not just privacy, but they want choice, they want freedom, they want the ability to actually choose without being forced? Now, I would argue I really not just wanted that ice cream, but I actually liked it. And it was creamy, it was tasteful. I'm a weirdo with just simple vanilla ice cream. But what is it that next week? So last week was when we got the ice cream. What is it next week when maybe you haven't had a meal for a little while? What is it that you would do or give away? And we talk about it in the secret combinations dialogue around giving away convenience or giving away privacy for convenience. And I would argue today, us as humans, we're pretty simple. There's a couple things we want or desire in life, and the rest of it are just, benefits and pluses, so to speak. But and we'll just leave that at that. But the point is all these different vendors and logos, in addition to some others, are the ones that we're basically rubbing shoulders with, not just within the Clear ecosystem, but also helping to build the digital world ecosystem. So those are some of the things that are going on as far as big picture goes. As far as the simple, tactical day to days, we've made massive progress on trying to understand some of the ramifications with ClearCell as well as with the Clear phone subscriptions. If you weren't paying attention last week, I'll say it again, the Clear phone subscriptions will be going away. The ClearCell services will be increasing. So if you've already got services, wonderful. We'll honor those. They'll be grandfathered. There's certain things you have to do to make sure that it's there. We're going to verify activity. We're going to verify those types of things. But there's been a lot of abuse, and ultimately, you know, um, we just need to automate the checks and balances, and that's basically what we're going through. So there's a lot of progress that's made. The goal is by the end of November to be able to start getting the Clear rewards flowing again, and to have all the reporting and elements completed by then. But you need to know that there are some, and it's not just T-Mobile or AT&T. By the way, for those that may have come and gone, both not just T-Mobile, but also T-Mobile and AT&T are available offerings as far as cellular services in North America. That's Mexico, Canada, as well as the United States. There are also additional services that will actually go worldwide with additional vendors that are being brought on, and a separation between voice, text, data, and hotspots. So those are the tactical things that we're working on. Some of the things that you can actually get involved with as far as a advancement. I'm going to go to clearos.app or app, and then I'm going to scroll over to Marketplace, and I'm going to come down to um, Clear Life, Clear Signal, Clear Did Contacts, and Clear Pay have all been updated. Some of the things that are unique, some of the biggest things that are unique within, when I say updated, yes, last month there were updates to all of those apps as well, but there's new apps and features and functions that are coming within ClearPay. So for instance, you'll actually be able to have multiple different strings. And I'm just gonna pull up a phone here real fast. So I'm going to go over to contacts. And I'm going to pull up a contact here. Okay. I'm going to see if I can maybe, yeah, I'll go right here. I'm going to click on here. Let's see. Well, that's not going to work. Let's do it a different way. That's not going to work either. Well, you're just going to have to look at your little screen down at the bottom. So under ClearPay, actually, I think I should be able. This should have a stream on it. No, maybe it doesn't. So you should be able to see a contact, okay? And inside the contact, what you'll notice are multiple different types of digital wallets. And those digital wallets, you see the share all. Notice how you have a QR code. And I'll just put that over that. This QR code represents my unique relationship with this individual. And they change per individual. And so you have party A is connected to party B. And it doesn't just happen to have it with a person to a person. It can be a person to a thing. Like this actually has, this is just a simple charger, but it also has the ability, or anything that had a barcode on it. Imagine the barcode turning into these QR codes, but they're a QR code that actually has intelligence inside of these. And so imagine if there's data, and I'm just going to go ahead and edit this. So I'm going to say plus. Notice that there's additional chains here. So what I'm showing you, if you're not seeing this, is Bitcoin is its own chain. Cardano, digital, which represents the digital world, which most folks aren't used to today unless you're on these calls. Ethereum, Ripple, Solana, and other. So, or a Stellar. So imagine the ability to have different types of chains, layer one chains, that you have your own address for. So you can see here, there's actually two different chains that have two different addresses. But imagine the ability to actually I want to go back. So if you have the ability to actually have multiple chains with individuals, when you go into your ClearPay wallet, which by the way, that's contacts. So you have to update contacts and wallet. Those are two apps. But when you go in and you say, I actually want to select a particular asset to send, there's lots of assets, right? But you just select one, it dynamically knows which addressing chain to actually use. So this is very different than what the world has historically used or with exchanges, whether they're centralized exchanges or decentralized exchanges. So if you want to go and send or receive certain assets, when you actually click on that, being the contact, the individual that you actually want to link to, so you don't have to memorize all the addresses, you can actually click in and it automatically pulls in all the different addresses that are associated with that particular chain. That is a really big advancement. Now, most of you may say, hey, I just want to tell people about a phone, or I want to understand this digital world, or what is decentralization. So these are apps that have been updated with very important updates. And so for those of you that want to try them out, feel free. This is the place to ask questions about them, to understand them. There's features and functions that are continuing to be added, but looks like someone wanted to ask a question there. Go ahead if you want to. Hi, Becca. Turn up just a little bit more. We can't hear you super well.
So just the ClearPay wallet. So if we have existing crypto and other exchanges, can we move to the ClearPay wallet?
So it's hard. Your mic is difficult to understand, but I'm going to try and repeat the question if we could. And while there we go. Whatever.
Is that better?
Oh, that's like night and day. Night and day. Go ahead and repeat the question on your own.
So if we have existing, like say, crypto and other wallets, how do we move that over to the ClearPay wallet?
So first off,
is that possible or is that coming?
It's possible depending on what chain it's on and if you really own the asset. So first off, if it's with an exchange, most of the time you don't own the asset. An exchange that most folks know is like Binance or Coinbase. And technically, they actually own the actual wallet, and then they allow folks to actually access that wallet, but they're the stewards of the private keys. And so they can actually control what is sent or received. So first part of the question is, do you own your own keys? And so if you're saying, hey, I have a treasure, or I have a different, I do own my own cryptographic keys, which are the 12 words, or the address, the private key address, then the answer would be yes. If so, that's step one. Then it's depending on what types of digital assets that you actually have. So for instance, if I go back and I go into the ClearPay wallet, I can see real-time assets within the checking ecosystems, which is like Clear or Native or others that have been created that I'm actually watching. Or if I go into so you'll notice, so at the top there where it says checking, and then over here, if you click on savings, these are typical type crypto-based assets. And for those that aren't aware what crypto is, again, it's cryptography, just in short, and that's really math. So when you click on the ClearPay wallet and you click on savings, or this button right down here, it'll pull up other assets. Ethereum is a good example of an asset. And most things that are on Ethereum, it uses one address and then it has sub accounts based upon whichever asset it is. For instance, like you can see, Gala here. Gala is an asset that's actually on Ethereum. Or you can see other assets like, Bitcoin or others. But these types of assets are on their own chain, and if you have access to the private keys, then you can set up the ability to actually send. Now, if you've already set up within a wallet that you're already managing the keys on, it should be as simple as, hey, what is my Ethereum address? So here, I'll pull it up for you real fast. So let's say Ethereum. And so you wanted to send or you wanted to receive it here on your other device, you would say, I want to actually pay it. And then you scan this and send it in. I personally would not recommend storing crypto-based assets like that on this system just yet, primarily because a lot of this stuff is very kind of futuristic. And I'm going to be honest with you, the savings-based element here, we're actually going to be walking away from this and plugging in one that is massively mature. So it's already got tons of different assets. And when we do that, the wallet addressing schemas are going to change. And the reason that we're doing that is we're actually enabling, and I'm going to tell you guys here first because you're paying attention and you care, we're actually enabling cards. So imagine a card. If you want to send, and we call it cold storage, is what the industry calls it. If you want to send these crypto type assets, you have to actually have a fifth factor of verification where you put a near field communication interaction with the phone to actually unlock those assets to then send them. So we call them savings-based assets because one, they're really slow, but two, they're in the mainstream crypto ecosystems today. Whereas these checking type of assets are fast, but it's a new type of a system that folks are still getting used to. So I hope that answers your question. Again, there's two parts to it. You got to make sure you own your own keys, and you got to make sure that you can send it, so to speak. It's on the right chain that's supported with the wallets. Does that answer your question, Becca?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Michael. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one of those ClearPay cards, although it could be expired.
I bet you it's not. Usually, most of the ones that have been issued, they go for, well, it depends on when you got it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, feedback while we're on it? We're at 6:03, so we've got 27 minutes left. I'll go ahead and leave it open for a little while.
Hey, Michael.
Hi, James.
Hey, so these switches you're talking about ClearPay, is that coordinated with the reloading of the rewards we're talking about with Gina and Paul? Is that like the same kind of coordinate with that?
Yeah, the prior topic that I discussed in the end of November timeframe, that's what we're formally tracking to. That's exactly the same topic. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like where that's going. It'll be fun to see that progress.
Totally agree. And it's, we wish that things didn't happen over the last 60, 90 days the way that they had. But I think in the end, it's going to be a really positive thing. So, you can.
Well, hey, challenges create opportunities to pivot and adapt, right? So things are moving so fast in this whole realm that it's important to be flexible and be able to quickly like that.
No, you're spot on. Absolutely spot on. Spot on. Other thoughts, comments, questions?
Michael, I have one other question
Okay.
I can ask.
Mm-hmm.
With ClearMeet, how do you set up? Like, I also do network marketing as well. So is it possible to set up can you set up meetings with your teams?
Yeah, absolutely.
In ClearMeet?
Yeah, so it works.
I tried to do it, but I couldn't figure it out.
So when you log in, so the URL, if you haven't set this up, is going to be right here. So app.clear.one, and then you create an account. And then once you create an account, you'll have, I would recommend you sticking on these personal rooms. So you can kind of see, you can create different, like for instance, this would be an example of maybe, here, I'll pull this up. So you can see these are all the different meetings that I personally have. So I don't use Zoom. This 100% replaces Zoom. By the way, for those that are online, we no longer use Zoom or any of the other streaming technologies to basically get this out there live, so to speak. So this is all done on Zoom. So there's no profiling. Any of the if you use recordings or if there's any type of scripting, that data. So for instance, let's take this meeting here. You see a meeting where there's 10 people, you can kind of see who they are. You can see information about them, so to speak, but you can download the recording on your own or the transcripts on your own. So that's really important.
That's awesome.
So basically, you just go to this little tab right here under conferencing, and you would say add a conference. You'd pick, is it a personal conference, a presentation, a webinar? And the personal rooms will go basically 1,000 people. The presentation stuff will go up to like 4,000 or 5,000. Now there will be a productization. Yeah, exactly. The presentation stuff is like one to many. So it looks different, it feels different. And when you actually have it loaded up, you notice how these are purple here for me, and you can change it. So you see this is a presentation that can actually be different. So notice the difference between starting a meeting and starting a presentation. They're two different animals, two different technology stacks. Okay. Notice the URLs are a little bit different. So clear.express./clear versus this particular one would be the name of it. So I guess the simple way to put it is it's .events versus .express are the two different domains.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because I was just thinking the other day, because we do a lot of team meetings weekly in Zoom, and I'd really love to just introduce this platform to a lot of people in network marketing. So yeah, thanks very much for showing me that.
Yeah, no. So it's literally, it's there for you, and this is exactly what it was used for. Instead of using Zoom, use this technology, tell people about it. And there's also, for those that are not aware, and I recommend doing it on a PC with a web browser, kind of like what we're doing here, but I'm going to also go back to clearos.app. Oh, you know what? I wonder, Wally, could we take a task to make sure that the clear.meet, actually, sorry, it's already done. No need. I didn't know that this was done. So not only can you get ClearMeet within the ClearOS mobile marketplace, but you can also get it on Google.
Michael, that's huge. So what is the yearly annual subscription now for ClearMeet? And do we have direct links in our dashboard to share this?
There is no direct links. I'm going to see if they have this here. There are no direct links. It's tied to what's currently there. But you'll notice this is actually in the Google ecosystem, which the first time around, we literally had about 7 or 8 different apps. And then when we uploaded the marketing videos, which we haven't done here, they literally saw what we were doing and then killed the whole thing. I mean, talk about just freedom of speech and being wrong and profiling. Same app, same technology, been there. Once we put the marketing videos up and show what we're doing with decentralization, they killed the whole account. So this is a brand new account under Clear Software, but it's actually live. So you can go ahead and download this on your different devices. And what it does is it gives you more power on any Android device or any Clear phone device or Armor or Freedom. But you can actually manage the environment better than just a web browser. So I'd recommend this client. You can even share your screen on an Android device. But it doesn't scale well and have good performance right now. We're working on that. But back to your question, James, because it's a really good question. I'm going to see if I can pull you back up here. Looks like you're gone. So basically, you can download it from here for ClearMeet, or you can download it from Google for ClearMeet. So they're both APKs that work well. Is there anything else you wanted me to dig into there, James? I feel like there's a piece of that question I didn't ask or answer. You're on mute, bud.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Oh, okay.
I didn't answer a portion of your question. Can you restate?
Yeah. So the other portion was, are there direct links and how do we promote this within our circles? Or if they download the app from Google and or Clear, if they purchase the system, how does it link to the influencer?
So there's actually going to be a bundle of ClearMeet as well as when the digital world goes live, which I'll actually log in here real quick. So I'm going to go to digitalworld.earth. I'm just going to grab a Clear phone. I'm going to go to Clear Life. I'm going to say scan QR code. I'm just going to mouse over this real fast, which you don't have to use this. You can go to another page. So I'm logged in now online, okay? So inside of this digital world, you're going to have a lot of different technologies that'll automatically pop on the left. Let's broaden your question to, is it just a Zoom replacement technology like the ClearMeet that we're talking about, or is it much more than that? Could it be technologies such as email, contacts, calendar, docs, sheets? So there's so much more. And so for those of you that were aware, I'm getting some feedback. I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. Bob, we're going to mute you unless you have a question. Bob, it looks like it's dark in your world. What time is it for you, bud? Bob, did you have a question? We'll go ahead and mute you here, buddy. So basically, imagine in this digital world where you have a lot of other things. It's not just can you create a company or a digital asset, but you actually have the ability to get an email address that's already created based upon you logging in. One that works in the centralized world, but it provides as a transition into the new digital or decentralized ecosystem. So that's really where this is going, where you can have other technologies, assets, systems, identification, keys, wills, you name it, that is really built into this ecosystem. So not only can you log in with your phone, but you can actually access not just things from your phone, but you can access a much broader ecosystem. So I hope that shed some light. So I'm going to break your question, James, into two different pieces. The pricing is going to be built into new offerings that are coming out. And the way that it's linked is going to be tied to the ClearUnited element side of those offerings. So a good example. Imagine bundles that basically have this little icon next to them, this ClearUnited eligible. So when they're in your circles and they're automatically purchasing these types of things, it's going to be built into the awareness side of it, if that makes sense. So it's the same thing that we've already talked about. So does that answer your question, James, or are there other questions that anyone else wants to ask?
Yes, I'd like to ask you a question, Michael, please.
Go ahead.
Actually, I have two questions because I showed the phone to two different people today.
Mm-hmm.
And one was he wanted to know if his conversations, if he has a Clear phone, can his conversations be monitored by any authorities, government, law enforcement, anybody? Are they completely safe?
The simple and honest answer is everything is not safe. And the way to be able to help them to get to a safe ecosystem is we actually have to get off of the existing identifier system. And so what I mean by that is, remember I talked about that QR code inside of contacts? If that is being used to communicate, instead of saying, I want to call this phone number from this phone number or send an email from this address to this address, that is the only real way to actually make that become truly secure. And so what we're doing is we're building out an ecosystem where those QR codes will actually be the authority, and the ability for those conversations to happen in the digital world will basically happen. But the point is there's no, and this is why Facebook changed their name. I'm going to go meta definition. Metadata is actually stored. I'm going to read this out for those that are
making or showing awareness of reference to oneself or to the activity that is taking place, especially in an ironic or comic way.
So it's even more than that. I mean, it literally, if certain powers wanted to say, I want to look at what web searches, or I want to look at what phone calls or what emails talked about snowflakes on a certain date, that metadata is included in the data that's already being stored from every single transaction in the digital world. I'm going to give two examples of why. About 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago now, I was in DC. And there were certain things that were going on political wise, and some of the individuals that we talked with and met with. Now, I'll give you a history of 26 years. It's all I've done is kind of high-end security. Now, I don't have top-level security clearance. The things that I talk about are not protected. I did not take any oaths or sign any documents. But what I can tell you is the technology that meta tags this data and records the data and transmits it, not just stores it. Not only is it just not in Utah, but it also came out of Utah universities and was initially funded by Utah venture capitalists, all of which, the university and the venture capitalists, I personally worked with directly. And so that gives you a baseline on where this is coming from. I'm not doing what Edward Snowden did, where he said, I've been exposed to using this technology and what's happening with Americans and humanity in general, and I'm blowing a whistle and violating agreements that I've signed, because I personally have not signed those agreements. Now, that being said, I do think that there are ramifications for people in the world knowing that every single piece of data, piece of hardware, and most software is violated. Now, there was a big time when people came out and said, using this type of encryption in these types of countries is wrong, but ultimately, those types of things have all been disseminated and rolled out. Some people would argue, well, the people behind the technology, all they did was they basically said, hey, 256, 128, 64, the encryption side of it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of how much compute gets thrown at it. So the answer to your friend is everything is actually tracked, stored, compromised, and meta tagged. And if people want to pull it up, they can. The value of what this ecosystem here provides. And it's really decentralized apps in general that will actually use this. It's not just, the future of ClearSignal. ClearPay is actually the one that's got it built in, actually ties over to the decentralized contacts. By the way, if you just download here or go onto your phone, and inside of the best way to do it is actually if you have a phone already, is use this Clear Apps button. So if you go into the different Clear apps, so you log in and just say, show me updates, it'll automatically get you those updates. So that's what we'd recommend you do. But the direct answer is the only way to securitize data is to get it off of the existing, not platforms or data systems, but to get it off of the way that they're originating. So like from a phone number to a phone number. When you actually do it from a QR code that's a DID, and that's why these DIDs are so important, then that's where the separation actually comes into space. So
if I'm understanding this, because I'm technologically not very advanced, when you put a contact into your phone, there's a QR code that is automatically assigned to that contact?
that's right. Yep. Right. You can kind of see the start of it here. Yep.
And you can call somebody from the QR code?
That's where it's all going. You can't do that today, but that's basically where it's going. The hard part is to replace some pretty key infrastructure. But eventually just imagine you just want to communicate with a contact, right? And imagine if you just push a button and it starts communicating with them. You don't really care if it called on, we all use different types of, let's say, video conferencing technology, from Google Meet to WhatsApp to Telegram to Signal to, all of those different technologies, WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, they all basically authenticate off the phone number, but they use digital direct data to actually communicate. Now I'm going to go back to the conversation that I was talking about in DC, because I didn't make my point there. And I'll just use some, I'll be specific. So the individual that actually, and there are different regions depending on where the president of the United States travels to, and you can go ahead and fact check me. There is actually a copper landline that goes with the president of the United States that's physical. Not wireless, not cellular, not data. It goes back to the old school landline. Okay?
Okay.
I would just throw out there, why would that be? Why is it that the president of the United States needs secure communication and they would only have a landline, like physical copper wire? The old stuff with the dial tone, the buttons that you push.
Yes.
So why is it that the president would do that? And why is it that at the highest end of banking, or the lowest end of debt collecting or formed slavery, or I won't even say it that way, but let's say certain taxing authorities, the only way that you can actually communicate with them is not through email, is not through voicemail, is not through independent phone calls, but it's through fax. What does faxes, and I think, by the way, fax is one of the biggest innovation that humanity has ever seen. I think it's such cool technology. I know it may be old, but to send a scan over a copper wire and have it come out on the other side, that's so cool. But I digressed. But think about it. Why is it that a fax is what these folks think is secure? And
because it is.
Because it's not digital, it's analog.
Right.
So the analog world doesn't have the same types of profiling, meta tagging, storing of data. And that's why whoever the president is gets a landline that is actually analog copper based. So that should be the answer to your friend. So the real meat of what happens here within the Clear ecosystem is not necessarily, are we removing any of that, or are we encrypting it to a level that can't be unencrypted? Because all encryption can be broken. All hardware can be accessed through CMOS, BIOS, backdoors, OSs, virtual systems, physical access, tons of stuff. But what we're doing is two things. One, decentralizing the storage side of it. And two, the way that the actual data is actually stored or initiated is obfuscated. So the phone number to phone number can't be detected because there is no phone number to phone number. It's a dynamic DID for that particular user to another user that has a dynamic DID.
Okay, so but it has to be, they would both have to be on clear phones, correct?
They would have to have a type of software like ClearDid contacts or Clear Signal that uses ClearDid contacts to initiate a call or something like that. So it'll always start on, and that's why we went into the hardware world, is when we decrease all of our variables, we can actually prove that we can get it done. And so we will launch it first on Clear phones, Freedom phones, Armor phones, etc. And then eventually it'll come out on apps. So
if somebody wants to, if I want to call you from my Clear phone, I call you from my contacts, then no listen in?
well, right now today, for instance, if you use Signal or Clear Signal, so if they're not on a Clear phone, they can use normal Signal. If they're on a Clear phone, then Signal is built in and dynamically there. And what it does is you can actually initiate a video call, a voice call, and it uses data only. But the way that the technology works today is it originates from authentication off of a phone, just like Signal, WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. But that's not where we're going in the future. We're absolutely ripping out those phone numbers and replacing them with this DID architecture for contacts. But today, if you wanted to make a call that's not on the POTS network, PTSN network, or normal data cellular infrastructure with a normal cellular phone number, then you would do it through Signal. It'll actually think it pops up and you think that you're doing it. Some of you may recognize, hey, the call quality is worse, or there's packet loss or distortion, or some may think it's better depending on what your cellular versus data is in your region. So does that answer your question, Daniela?
I think so. So for now, what you're telling me is anybody, well, not anybody, but anybody with the right technology, the forces that be can listen to your phone conversation.
Yeah, unless you're using an analog line or going down the same road we're talking about. That's not the answer they want to hear. It's not the answer you want to give them, but that's the truth. All of it is
Okay, well, no, I'm not
compromised.
giving the truth. No,
Yeah.
I'm about the truth.
Yeah.
My next question is, I was actually horrified today. A girlfriend of mine called me. She has an 8-year-old grandson. And there's a new thing, well, new to me anyway, called sextortion. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have a Clear phone, she was saying, I said to her, well, I think Clear phone would protect your child. But she said, yeah, but if the perpetrator has a Clear phone, then he can still get at your child if they're both on a Clear phone. So whatever, I don't know what's the app that replaces Facebook on our phones? Do we have one?
There's a technology called Clear Communities, which is where people can connect online, but the volume of connections nowhere close to where it needs to be. There's two different types of definitions for children, in my opinion. You have one that are kind of younger than teens, and two that are teens and older. And I believe that teaching these kids true and correct principles when they're young and then letting them govern themselves is the right thing. And there's two technologies that actually enables these. So this technology around Clear Kids, which comes on Clear phones, if you're using that, the type of thing that they're talking about cannot be realized, primarily because it limits the actual apps that they can access. So a parent can say, you know what, you can only do this, this, and this for this amount of time, and it really is very tight and limited. Then on the flip side of it, and this is where we're really going in the long run, is with this ClearGM, which allows for blocking of all ports, URLs, IP addresses, both inbound and outbound, if there's a payload that gets executed. Now, this is a type of virus, so whether they're trying to grab data, whether they're trying to listen on mics, whether they're trying to grab contacts, whether they're trying to do certain things with permissions that wouldn't be normally done, or even the phones. All phones with chipsets all have folks that are making calls outbound that you just don't want. And this literally saves 30% of the volume. But there's so much here. This is not something I want to actually talk about today, even though there is active development going on. But the point that I'm driving at is, the issue that you're talking about with sexting is usually something that is very simple, but it also ties to folks that just continue to kind of make poor choices with a device. And they can do it over.
This is called sextortion.
Yeah. So they're basically, it's not just sending. So sexting is sending something that is maybe sexual in nature over a type of digital communication. Maybe it's a text.
Right.
Maybe it's a video, something. Maybe it's Snapchat. So that type of interaction, which may be welcomed, which is a different conversation. There's a portion of it where they actually will say, hey, this is who I say I am, and I really want to connect with this situation. And then they do it. And what they're doing is they're basically copying that conversation, and then they will take it and say, if you don't pay me this amount of money, I'm going to do this with it. So that's taking, sexting. So you're on a video cam, you're on a whatever, and they're basically using it against the individual unless they say, hey, send me this or this and this. And what they'll do is they'll use normal systems, LinkedIn, Snapchat. Snapchat is absolutely the worst. Please, first off, I just say, do not have your children or your posterity or any of the youngers. And it's going to be the popular thing that they want. But, even things like Facebook. So they basically will say, hey, give me this phone number. You give them the phone number. Then they cross-triangulate that phone number. They look it up on backlinks. And then they can even plug it into Facebook. So they plug your phone number into Facebook, find out who your Facebook profile is, find out who your friends are, and then they say, hey, here's a picture of you with a breast out, or with this or with that, or just inappropriate things that normally you think you're actually, and I'm not saying right or wrong, because when I was born in my generation, this type of thing just wasn't even possible now, and I don't understand a lot of it. But the point that I'm driving at is they take this God-given gift to have connection and procreate and have intimacy, and this wonderful thing that I believe has been just perverted in this generation. They take it to twist it and then basically provide extortion. It's full-on extortion. And what's crazy is, let's say that someone made a mistake, and I'm just going to use a simple example of, they showed a breast and they didn't want their XYZ friends to see them with their breast out. So this sextortion will basically say, hey, send us $500 or $300 or $30 or $3,000, whatever, to this address. And it may be a Western Union, it may be ACH, it may be a PayPal, it may be a Cash App, but they'll basically try and get that sent off. And once it happens the first time, that doesn't mean that it's gone.
No. And these kids are committing suicide left, right, and center.
It actually continues to get worse. I mean,
yes,
and
I've never heard of that before.
It's not just some photo of a breast popping out. It could be full-on video interaction. And what they're saying is, hey, you think about it. A lot of people have addictions to substance or other things. And what they end up doing is they'll burn relationships to get money to get that next hit or fix. Yes. Well, in this case, they're not trying to get a hit or fix. Well, maybe they were with the technology or whatever, but they're trying to save face or reputation or their identity. And in so doing, some of them just, I mean, you know how it is, these tender ages of teenagers, they're struggling to just understand who they are and why they're
Oh,
here
so
and where they're
sad.
going. And it's, I personally know people that have actually put bullets in their head and they're no longer with us. As a matter of fact, I'm traveling back from a funeral. That's why I'm in a hotel today. As well as this event, we were able to get both of them done at the same time. But, um, you know, funerals for me really are beautiful things that help us to reflect. And I think this is a perfect conversation that ties to it. In this day and age, one of the threats that we have is our own ability to see who we are. And it's not just, are we physically addicted to some type of chemical, which is another topic in society, but are we physically addicted to some type of an experience? And then it even goes further to how it's not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing. Who
Yes,
who are
absolutely.
we? How do we see ourselves? How do we relate to others, especially online? And when you look at this dispensation and these wonderful kids that are going through this, and I think that they're as strong as they ever are, but mentally, and I think a lot of it has to do with we as society have gone through uh, a, an experience where we're not fighting for the normal things of life, food, shelter. We're fighting for identity. I mean, just last night I walked into the room to see something crazy on TV, a normal commercial that had something that for me it was just that's not right in any way. I'm walking to the event in the morning and I see the same thing. Now, granted, I'm in the worst city in the world for it, but the point that I'm driving at is this type of stuff is absolutely just normal, and they have to mentally figure out how to navigate through this opportunity that we call life. And you know there are helplines for that type of stuff. For instance, I've had somebody, very high profile individual, in the last 10 days he's reached out probably 3 or 4 different occasions, multiple times, where his platform is Facebook and Instagram. And they basically he reached out. I can't give you a lot of details, but the point that I'm driving at is he struggles with a lot of these same realities, just like all of us do in this dispensation. But instead of it being a sexting type thing where they're extorting him for that, it's him wanting to have his profile live. So instead of putting something inappropriate out there, they're basically saying, we're going to take away your online identity unless you pay us this amount of money. And in some ways, it's like these people are on the inside. So they're actually working for these companies. You think the cancel culture, why do you think we built a whole replacement for Zoom and for Facebook and for all these systems? This cancel culture is not just, for people that are doing bad. It's people that are also talking good, because this individual stands for truth. He stands for liberty. He stands for things that are beautiful things, but literally they're trying to just take his platform away. And this last
I
week,
get that. In my own personal life, I've got lots of people that have walked away from me because they can't handle the truth, and they've just totally like, we're not friends anymore just because I have different ideas, and I'm listening. I don't listen to mainstream ever, and I've been canceled with my friends.
wow. Well, think about this. And I'd go back to the saying, you can't handle the truth, right? But
Yep.
and I think we can all, the problem is we don't really know what the truth is. And so it's a matter of how can
No.
we discern good from evil, right from wrong? Are there secret combinations? If so, who are they? Where are they? How are they? What? So, but this particular use case or example was, it wasn't we're going to show this if you don't pay this. It was we're going to take this down if you don't pay this. And
Unbelievable.
he didn't pay it, and they took it down.
They erased him.
They literally erased him, canceled him, and then they said, you know what? This is the dollar amount now that you need to pay. And so he had to pay it, and now it goes back up online. But here's the reality: that happened already a long time ago, many quarters ago. So what's to say it's not going to happen again? And what's in the back of this individual's mind around who's out to get me? Anxiety and PTSD, and just the sheer unknowing is really, it's not just a plague, but it is one of the trials of this dispensation. And so, you know, we need to learn how to navigate online, where to go, what to do, what not to do, what applications to use. And that's why, when you have simple tools like this, ClearGM is going to be one of the biggest gifts to humanity. I mean, it took us 5 years to build. It's solid on the server side of it. It's not solid on the mobile side of it yet. Um, I can't even tell you the complexities behind it. But this Clear Kids app, this thing works great. It's foolproof. A parent can say, "Hey, you know what? You can get to these 3 apps, and you can only do it for this amount of time, and it's done." And by the way, this works on any Android device. People can just download it and run it. But there is no foolproof way to teach street smarts and wisdom. As a
No,
parent,
there
we
isn't.
just
No.
need to spend time with these youngsters, teach them the best we can, and then let them govern themselves. And hopefully, technology continues to come up with solutions to the problems, like this event that we're at right now. I mean, this event is, it's these companies. Not all these companies are doing bad. I think most of them are actually very ethical, and doing everything they can to provide value for humanity. But anyhow,
You really think that? I've just lost my
well,
trust and faith in most companies. I just have, especially the bigger they are, the less I trust them.
so what I'm trying to say is, we as humans try and figure out how we're going to get educated and then add value or serve others in life. Along the way, like some of these companies in here, I sat down, I talked, like I won't ever go sit down with the JP Morgan Chases or some of these big ones because they're already set who they are, why they're doing it, what they're doing. But there are companies that are in here that are actually trying to just provide a living, and they don't understand these secret combinations. And so when you
Right.
come in and say, "Hey, would you be interested in what you've built, linking it to decentralization for this benefit and this feature for humanity," they see it, and they truly, it's like this conversation that we're having. For instance, we talked with a team that's, they process, $165 billion. Today it's, 120 billion. Actually, no, it's $150 billion today in transactions. I won't tell you what or how or why, but we're saying, would you be interested in actually transacting that through a new ecosystem that actually does it in real time? And the cost of transactions nowhere close to what you're talking about. And you could actually, just like 20 years ago, people offered direct deposit to their team members. Now you can offer direct payments that are digital. Are you interested? So my point is when they start understanding, even though they don't have, decentralized flowing through their blood or crypto histories, the fundamentals to these people are good people at the core. And I believe that most people are. It's the secret combinations that are behind the companies that
Yes.
actually have the conniving drivers that are
Yes.
actually hurting and really essentially controlling humanity. Just like that simple ice
Yeah.
cream scenario that I talked about earlier. I mean, I was appalled. It was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm standing right here talking through the glass to the lady on the other side with the ice cream. And it really was good. But she says, "I can't do anything. There's no lines. Usually you come up on these big lines and you're waiting for them to try and get you paid and get it out. But you got all these people standing around trying to plug into their phone to try and pay for it and buy it. And then you got the people over there with the ice creams that are just standing there twiddling their thumbs until someone figures out how to do it." But I promise you that will become mainstream, as much as we don't want it to be. And some people are like, "Hey, I don't care," just like all the people signing up for it. but it's the ramifications of what that means that's really not from the people that are doing the software development or that are pushing the little ice cream maker to get the ice cream out.
No, it's not them. It's not at that level at all.
You got it. And that's what like 80% of these people here, they don't want the centralized ecosystem in their personal life and their posterity's life, but they don't understand what they're building. And that's why it's so imperative that folks like what we're doing and even others, like I went to a lot of these blockchain events. Most of them are just absolute fraud and garbage. They don't even understand what they're doing. But some of them, and I would even say out of the 10% that are actually professionals, 80% of them are just basically putting centralization on decentralized tech. So you could argue, why even bother? You're just talking about, a different way to record a transaction. So anyhow, I don't want to. The conversation is wonderful, and the questions are brilliant, and it's been a really good ripple effect in session. But I want to make sure. Are there any other questions that are out there, or topics, or conversation points that you'd like to bring up?
Thank you, Michael, for answering my questions.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for always asking such brilliant, good questions, and for standing out. I think that this ripple effect is primarily for ClearUnited influencers that actually want to make a difference and more are willing to say, "Hey, I have a voice. I'm going to use it. I'm not just going to die with my voice not being heard. I'm not going to worry about saying that people think that I'm paranoid or people think that I'm a part of these cults or whatever they are." But it's important to actually at least individually understand what's going on in humanity. This isn't just about, well, I'm not going to start talking about war and other things, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm grateful for your time, for your attention. I'm going to pull up a video on the Clear Kids app, and we'll end on that particular topic. So I'm going to clear.co.com. I'm at a hotel, so my video is not super fast, but we'll go ahead. I'm going to search Clear Kids, and I'm going to play this video for you. Here we go.
This is for parents, those unflagging warriors for proper nutrition, education, friendship, and reasonable bedtimes. Our front line is the clock, the diminishing moments we have, and how to make the most of them. The last thing we need is for daily skirmishes to break out over media time and content, to undermine the minutes we need to love, to nurture, to teach. That's why there's Clear Kids. Set it once and forget it. Approve apps and screen time. Done. Clear Kids gives you the peace of mind the victor deserves. Clear Kids, a parent's best friend.
Much love, everybody. Thank you for your time and your attention. We'll sign off now. Bye-bye.